All right, Mr. Chair, you're alive.
All right, thank you very much. So welcome everyone to the Annapolis Environmental Commission meeting for February 2024. So we have a quorum of members here tonight. So I'm Jeremy Hansen from Ward 5 and chair for the commission. We'll just go around based on who I see on my screen and take roll from there. So Linda.
Hi all, Linda Matthew. I'm also from Ward 5.
And Marianne.
Marianne Marbury from Ward 1.
Kathy.
Hi, good evening. Kathy Welker, Ward.
Thanks, Kathy. And your audio was a little in and out for me, but I'm not sure if there's anything you can do. Maybe it was just my end. Jenny?
Jenny,
It might have been my voice, not my audio.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
Can
that.
you not hear me?
It's
We hear
breaking
you.
up a little bit.
Yeah, so maybe if you turn off your video, maybe at times when you're trying to talk, that might actually help. And Jenny, our vice chair.
Jenny Janice, Ward 6.
Bill, you still there?
Yep. Bill O'Leary, Ward 2.
Great. And I'll turn over to city staff. Racine.
Hi, Racine Hodo, City Manager's Office.
And that's everyone present so far. We may have another member or two joining us during the course of the meeting. On tonight's agenda, first up, we have just standard admin, and then we'll spend the bulk of our meeting talking about our community forum sponsored and held by Save Our Trees earlier this month. So we'll attempt to share a video from that includes various speakers from that event. Since only a few of us were able to be there, I think it'd be valuable for us to hear what was said and then discuss some of the follow-up. Marianne will introduce that when we get there, and we'll have some time for discussion as well. And then we'll have the rest of our meeting dedicated to ongoing business updates or other items we want to discuss with Racine and maybe Jackie if she shows up by then. And I don't see Alderman Savage, but if he also appears, we may get into legislative or other issues as well. So we certainly can fill up 2 hours with all of that. First up, we'll turn to approving our meeting minutes from January. You all should have received them earlier today. I think the only change I wanted to note is Linda, you probably weren't listed as a participant, but I know you were listening during the meeting. So if no, she didn't make it onto the Zoom, we can still recognize her attendance as a listener.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
was
would be
there.
I would like us to acknowledge that.
I'll make that change.
Were there any other edits or changes to the minutes?
No, it looked fine to me.
Yeah, it seemed thorough to me.
And thank you for getting those done, Racine. You missed that meeting, so no, certainly appreciate the extra effort when you miss a meeting and still do the minutes.
Not a problem.
All right, can we get a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Great.
Either
All right.
Jenny or Linda.
All
Okay,
those.
we're gonna approve the minutes with the change.
Yes, thank you.
Linda, okay.
Yes, with the change noting Linda's listing Linda as an attendee. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right. The ayes have it. So minutes January approved. Thank you. All right. So before I turn it over to Marianne, I want to check in with Julian. Any progress on the audio for your end? If not, we can still screen share from my screen.
Yes. I'm also just sharing with you now, but it's gonna take a minute. But yeah, we should be okay.
Oh,
Okay.
We'll see.
Well, first we'll let Marianne introduce and talk about the form a little bit before we turn to the recorded portion.
Thank you all.
all right. So I know a number of you know that I'm one of the founding members of Save Our Trees. And again, just by way of introduction, we started Save Our Trees just about 2 years ago. And our mission is to save trees in the city of Annapolis and also Anne Arundel County, but primarily the city of Annapolis. And we're focused on primarily removing English ivy, but also other invasives. When we found out that the comprehensive plan for 2040 had a tree canopy goal of 50%, we reached out to Brian Adams to see how we could help. We initially suggested, obviously our help could be in the way of our mission, which is removing ivy, community education and advocacy. But we also indicated our willingness to advocate for an enhanced forester budget. During our meeting, Brian said, that was all great, obviously continue our mission of ivy removal, education and advocacy, also becoming involved in the budget this year. But he also, suggested that we really focus on educating city of Annapolis residents on this tree canopy goal of 50%, and why and how. So we brainstormed a little bit and came up with the idea of organizing a community forum, which we held on February 7th at the Michael Bush Library. And it was great. We had just about 50 people show up, which is amazing, considering we advertised it about a month before. And we also were very successful in inviting and having those invitations accepted for 4 presentations that you'll hear tonight. One by Brian Adams, one by Rob Savage, another by Jared Littman, and then 2 representatives from Bartlett Trees. In the interest of time, we're only going to show the presentations tonight. We also had a Q&A after the presentation, but we'll reserve that for discussion at some other point in time. That Q&A is going to run over into another forum that we've already organized for March 12th, also at the library. And during the March 12th event, it's basically our intention to basically have a community discussion. We, depending on how many people show up, we may even have breakout groups divided by wards. And it's really just going to be a brainstorming session, an education session on what we can all do as residents to basically bring about this 50% goal that was presented in the comprehensive plan. Before we start the video, I just want to point out that if you haven't already, you can refer to that tree canopy goal in the comprehensive plan. It's under the environmental sustainability section, pages 298 to 304, and it provides very good information on, why the goal was set at 50%, what we need to do to get there, and it's really well worded, and it's a tool that we'll use with the community to basically educate them on how we can get there and why we want to get there. So that is all I have, Jeremy, if we want to start the video.
Jeremy, do you want me to just go for it?
Yeah, let's give it a try with you. I think the audio may come out better.
Okay.
And I think you can skip to about maybe a minute 40-ish.
Up there. This is where Brian Adams is up.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's try there.
All right. You guys see my screen all right?
Yes.
Nationwide, urban tree canopy is declining in the city here, and they're saying approximately 36 million
Are you
trees
hearing that all right?
in the nation.
Yes, that is
and
better.
that is
If you can pause for just 1 second, I think we will say, I think Brian has the quietest audio, I think, from the portions I've watched. So if it is too quiet or not coming through well enough, like maybe use the raise hand feature or try to interject, and maybe we could try skipping to the next speaker if it's just not coming through clearly enough for folks. But let's give it a try, and hopefully we can the other speakers, I think, will come through a little better.
I just
Right.
brought up more as well on this. And then Jeremy, I just sent you a text. So if there's you leave me jump, you can just text me too or pause it,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Again, let's see this better.
as well. We measure tree canopy. Tree canopy essentially is everything that you see looking from the top down, right? So any leaves, stems, branches, anything you see from an aerial view that covers the ground. And that is defined as our urban tree canopy. So cities have been mapping infrastructure, roads, streets, all that stuff for years. And in the last 15, 20 years, they've started to look at trees as green infrastructure well and start mapping them across cities. And what they do is they use aerial imagery and LiDAR and remote sensing technology to, and then they overlay that over GIS layers to see land use, property information, and then get an idea of where we have it, where we don't. And then we can also look at the change, right? We can see how much we had at one point, and we do the analysis again, and we can see what we've lost and where we've lost it. In 2020, I got funding to do an analysis of our tree canopy. It hadn't been done since 2006. So we had it done. It covered the time period of 2011 to 2017. And what they found was that we had lost about 2% of our tree canopy. And I had better numbers in my slide, but I can't go over those now. But just to say that one of the biggest findings was that single-family homes was not only the biggest source of tree canopy, it's where most of our tree canopy exists, it's also where we lost the most. And it really comes from large trees being taken down on private property without replacements. And as you all know, when you take a large tree down to replace it, you're losing canopy. You may replace it with a tree, but you won't see that canopy for another 15 or 20 years. And I had a good chart to show you that's basically the canopy change by zoning. And basically what it shows is that all of our residential zones have lost significant amount of canopy up to 37 acres lost in the R2, which is one of our single family residential districts. So, with that, when we look at the city and where we can increase our canopy, it really comes down to private property. So the city and the community really needs to look at how we can get trees planted on private property. The city has various programs and ordinances that try to help do this, but it really is dependent on the community to be involved and take part in it. Just quickly, in the city, we have forest conservation law, which Alderman Savage will probably mention, and we do tree preservation review on all grading and building permits, so we're trying to save trees where we can, and if they've got to come out and require replacements. There's legislation to protect trees. We've got the no net loss that was passed for the forest conservation rule, and the city has a tree ordinance that requires trees that are going to be removed within the fronts or within the setback. So it's the area between a house and a road, a right of way, a sidewalk, essentially. That requires a tree permit. We have a lot of unpermitted tree removals happening in the city, and it's tough to keep track. I'm one person, And I do get calls from homeowners sometimes about those, and I can go out and try to, make sure that they're getting replanted, but a lot of that goes without replacement. We've got critical area rules where you've got to get permits to remove trees in the critical area. And then in the historic district, right? So any tree removal in the historic district require a permit. The other big things that I do is the tree maintenance of the city trees, pruning, tree removal, plant health care, trying to maintain our existing trees, and obviously Save Our Trees has come in and filled a great need in addressing some of our wooded patches and dealing with the ivy. It's something that I've never had a budget to take care of. And so they've been incredibly helpful to come in and take that over. And they've done a really nice job of taking that and going and running with it, really. And I'm hoping that they can get involved in doing some other things for us. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there to plant trees on public property as well as, city property. There's not a lot of city property out there that's got potential for planting, but it is there. Some of the things we've been doing recently, we've got a program called Replant Annapolis with the Watershed Storage Academy, and it's being funded by city dollars. And they train tree troopers in communities that are interested in planting tree projects within their community, and so they've got a good training program that they'll go through, and then we fund the trees, and sometimes they get volunteers to come out and help plant, sometimes they're done by a contractor. But essentially that's a program that we're running on a yearly basis where if you're in a community, an HOA, and you've got an area that you want to get some native trees planted, you can come to us and work with the Watershed Storage Academy to get trees planted. That's a really good program that's getting, it's gaining traction. It took a little bit of time to get it started, but people are starting to find out about it. We've recently done some tree giveaways. The one we did in the fall was really popular. We worked with the Arbor Day Foundation to set up a website where you could go in, choose from different species. You can move them around in the GIS program and see, your energy savings and that sort of thing. So you can choose the better tree for your property. So we plan on continuing those. I'm hoping to do one this spring. That's one thing that communities can do or residents can do is to take advantage of those programs and plant trees. I guess the final thing would be, and I had our flow chart, but
Oh, mercy.
it's all right. So one of the things,
I have a copy of it.
one of the things that Save Our Trees had asked me to do when we met about this in December was to put together just a basic chart of, what are the primary factors in our tree canopy, or increasing our tree canopy, right? And so those 5 that I put together were tree maintenance, right? Maintaining our existing trees, tree planting, education, and then our city code and our development review, which are obviously the city's tasked with those things. But the tree maintenance, tree planting, and education are all factors that the community can really help out with. They're already involved in tree maintenance, in removing ivy. The tree planting, there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of grants that are funding tree planting, and education, right? So everybody here, and educating your neighbors is incredibly important, because preserving our existing canopy really is the most effective way to make gains. I mean, if we're losing our existing canopy, we're never going to get to that goal. So there's going to be some loss here and there, but we've just got to really be replacing it. So plant trees in your yards. There's a lot of space out there. You may not have space on your property, but your neighbors may. And finally, my plea is that you advocate for adequate funding of the urban forestry program, because the program that I oversee has been underfunded for a number of years. And I think if we're truly going to make a difference and increase the tree canopy, we're going to need the money to do so. The money and the staff support will be critical. But I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It's been a great turnout. Sorry, I couldn't see my slides. Spent a lot of time working on those.
We'll do it again, Brian.
I'm glad I brought notes. I'm glad I brought notes.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you. And that was perfect.
Okay.
Spot on. All right.
Susan,
Yes.
maybe Brian can email it to you and you can put it on your website.
Oh, we can definitely do that. Yes, we can. All right. So Alderman, would you like to come up and explain to us how all this even got started, this goal of a 50% tree canopy by 2040? Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. I would love to. Always happy to speak about trees. And so thank you for the invitation. And please wave your hand if I talk too long. It's easy for politicians to talk too long, especially about this. I could be here all night. So I want to start off, and some of this is going to be some overlap with Brian, but I think it's good to emphasize points that people leave here with those in their head. So our original tree canopy goal set in 2006 by University of Vermont came in and did a study for us. Original goal is 50% tree canopy cover by 2036. So that's coming up on us here pretty soon, right? And at the time it showed that we had 41% coverage, and they looked at all the available space that we had, looked at similar jurisdictions, and determined that they thought we could get to 50% within this time period. And I still think we can. That's one of the things what I want to go through. But we need to have some initiatives by the city council, really frankly, to push forward and to fund. And I have various things I'm working on as far as how to do that. So, I think as Brian mentioned, the University of Vermont did a follow-up for us in 2020, and he mentioned that where the loss was pretty much residential lots, in particular single-family lots. And but it did have a couple of interesting data points right in there. They said we have 1,219 acres, or about 27% of our land cover, has no tree canopy. And so 678 of those acres, about 18%, are in the residential zones. 173 acres are on commercial zones. So we have the space, and actually just a few years back, our Annapolis Environmental Commission did a study along with the Chesapeake Conservancy to confirm that. So they got some aerial data from them and confirmed we have the space to do it. We have the space to accomplish that. It was funny at the time. Actually, Jared served with the person, but there was somebody on the council questioning the data, and I was like, this is aerial information put together. It's not fuzzy math. It's actually out there. We can look at where we can do the reforestation. So we know we have the space. It's just a matter of getting enough political will to do it. But with our budgets, and I'll get into the budget a bit more. So to reach that 50% goal by 2030, 680, good job. So to get to that point, that translates to planting about 1,377 trees a year. 1,377 trees per year to meet our goal. I don't think that's too much. I think we should at least try to aim for that. But right now, Brian has wonderful programs on a very shoestring budget, but we need to boost that. And groups like this are going to help, I think, fill in that gap. Because again, like Brian mentioned, part of it is preserving what we have. And so, how are we going to get there? 1,377 trees a year. How are we going to get there? Again, as Brian mentioned, protecting and enhancing our forests, existing forests, is a part of that. And so one of the things I'm looking at, and it is expanding some of our property maintenance laws to include tree care, tree maintenance. I mean, those are laws that we use when somebody has grass that's overgrown in their lawn, or the building's in disrepair. And I was just thinking, well, we should expand it. We should have that to be able to go to a homeowner and say, look, essentially say in some fashion, you're violating property maintenance. You need to get rid of that ivy on your trees. Because they do harbor pests. The ivy harbors mosquitoes. and it's not good for the overall health of the forest. So that's part of it. The other part of it is our community associations. A lot of communities have properties around that are not developed, owned by the community, that they just don't maintain. One of them's right near my community, across our fence line, is they have a number of trees all covered with ivy, and limbs fall down all the time. So we need to figure out a way to get them to comply. And I don't want to just go in there with the hammer just to get them to do what we want. I want to go in there, if we can find some funding to help particular community associations and maybe even homeowners do some of this maintenance work, or connect them with groups like yours that can help them with that effort. Right. So another part of that is, the city has a lot of property as well with forests, and we need to get our staff trained up to do it, or give them funding so they can hire outside parties, outside companies to do that work. So one thing we have touched on a lot, or have worked on a lot, especially in my 6 years now on the council, is some of our existing laws. And Brian mentioned some. The one I want to get into a little bit is the Forest Conservation Act. You may have heard of. That's a state act that was passed in like 92 or so, I think. And so that the state law, it's called forest conservation, but the way it's written, or was written especially, it led to a forest loss. No matter how you calculated it, you were going to lose forest. They weren't really conserving all that much. It was better than what we had, which was nothing. I don't want to be dismissive of it at all. It was a large step forward, but we learned over time that it just wasn't doing what it was set out to do. So Jared Littman, when he was alderman, got the first Forest Conservation Act passed for the city. First act, which was a huge improvement. And at this point, I can't really remember who did what some of the time, but he passed his, and then we improved it. We made it a no net loss, which means with no net loss of forest, we're setting the line where we're not going to have any kind of reduction. To do that, we had to say there's a fee in lieu built into that law, and what happened is the developers were just paying the fee in lieu. We're not going to bother with replacing the forest or mitigating. And it doesn't matter because I can just pay $1,000 and get around the whole law. That's what they did. And we had zero money because that didn't really bring in much money at all. But so we increased it. We've got the highest fee in lieu in the state, if not the country, I'd be willing to bet. But it's $500,000 per acre. If you want to avoid our law, you have to pay $500,000 to do that. And that's per acre. So what that does is that forces them to do the mitigation, to do the reforestation, to put the street trees in there. And part of that which we worked on is the forest conservation is intended to protect the priority forests, the ones near the streams, the high quality tree forests, but it just wasn't happening that way. And so we strengthened that language as well. So there's that law, there's the critical area law, which I think people are probably familiar with. We also strengthened that because the critical area law also has a very low fee in lieu. Again, they could pay $50,000. So we increased that, and we had the same replacement in the critical area. And that's something, frankly, if you want to talk to the county has not matched us on that. I don't know of any other jurisdiction in Maryland who's matched us on that for the critical area. I didn't really talk about it too much because I was kind of experimenting with getting things passed, and it worked. Nobody came out to oppose it, but but they also didn't get the word out as far as what we need to do in other jurisdictions. So we needed the critical area law strengthened. The critical area commission reviewed it, they approved it, so we know we can do it elsewhere. But that critical area forest conservation only really addresses development, new development, and it has to be an acre or larger. That's what triggers that law. We can reduce it, which is what I'm thinking about doing for legislation. Say if it's a half acre development, that triggers the law because that will get more reforestation and afforestation. So, but that's again development. But we're a developed city for the most part. So you have to think about what do we do for next steps? How are we going to increase the tree canopy apart from development? And that's where protecting our existing forest comes in, but that's where essentially backyard trees we need to somehow protect. And so Brian mentioned some of them. And so some legislation I'm working on, that we've both been working on, is the law that would require a permit if you want to take down a tree that's 18 inches or greater, anywhere in the critical area. I tried to do it anywhere in the entire city about a year and a half ago, and I could not get the votes, unfortunately. But I'm thinking I can at least get it passed, start in the critical area, 18 inches or larger. You'd have to get a permit, and you actually have to have a justification from an arborist to do it. You can't just do it if you don't like where it is. You have to meet certain criteria to take that tree down. So that, I think, is one thing that can help address the loss in the residential area. But then we have to think about, and Brian, I think, mentioned protecting heritage trees, and that's the larger trees. We could extend protection of those anywhere in the city. So we have, he mentioned incentivizing plantings, sponsoring tree giveaways. We need to partner more with nonprofits like yourselves to education, advocacy, and also just doing the work on the ground, because the city can't do it all. And so maybe we can figure out a way to contribute money or provide grants. We have to do, I think Brian's mentioned to the committee, I'm also on the environmental committee for the council, I chair that, but he's come to us before telling us what he thinks we need to do. And so one of them was creating an urban forest master plan. But that, again, you have to pay money to get, because Brian's overworked as it is, and asking him to put together a plan is just not going to work. So we need to hire more staff to work on this. If we're really serious about meeting this, and remember, how much did I say? How many trees a year? All right. Yes. So we need staff to help Brian do that. And the way you pay for staff in a city like ours, we can't create a new tax. And there's a lot of hesitancy to pass any kind of new taxes anyway. But so we have to find a revenue stream or find it somewhere in our existing budget to do it. And we don't have too much wiggle room in our budget. We have a pool of money we can use for one-time use, but this is not a one-time use. So we have to find a way to dedicated funding. And so we need money. So for example, at Cambridge, Massachusetts, it's about 3 times as large as Annapolis, but they have a staff of 3 with a budget of $3.5 million. Brian has a budget of, I don't know, what is it now, like 50,000, if that? You're up to 100 now? Okay, so, because that's one of the first things that gets cut every year is the tree maintenance, tree reforestation. So we have to figure out, and again, I'm telling you these things so you remember, and I'll at some point try to put together a summary, because the budget's coming up here. It's going to get given to the council in March, I think, April. I figure I should know that, but it's going to come to us soon, and so we are already putting together ideas what we want to put in that. And so, again, so we need money for staff, to cover maintenance, to pay for new trees, to support the nonprofits, to do outreach, to do training for our staff, and to do the tree surveys. So one idea I have is to utilize our watershed restoration fund. That's what our stormwater fee, that's what goes towards paying for our restoration projects. Trees obviously have a direct connection to water quality. That's really what we want them for, water quality and air quality. And so so I think we can utilize that, but my plan is to propose increasing that fee, not on the average homeowner, but I'm talking about all these concrete, asphalt, just parking lots, like I live right near the Giant, so I'm going to pick on them, but the Giant Shopping Center, or the apartment complexes that they have zero stormwater management, huge parking lots, and in particular, again, things like the Giant and the Safeway, is to have a restoration, have a fee, stormwater fee that gets charged to them, maybe even have it escalate, and really jack that up, because they're contributing nothing right now to our water quality and tree canopy. We need to figure out a way to have them help pay for a solution. And so if we take some of that money and we put it into a sub fund that's dedicated just to trees, that's one way I think we can use to help pay for it, assuming I can get enough votes for that. And all right, let me see, what else did I? Oh yes, I need to touch on this because this is a late addition I was thinking tonight before I came here. But I'm sure many of you heard about the council going to the Netherlands, some of us. And I always joke with people, probably the third time I've made this joke in the past few weeks, but I can't go to a meeting without mentioning the Netherlands because it was so transformational, and there's a direct connection to our trees and the environment, right? We went over there, we saw an incredible amount of just their cycling infrastructure. They've made a deliberate effort to get cars as much as they can out of the city, moving towards pedestrians and cycling. And so one of the things they've done, which again I'm going to push, and I think we have some money to do some of this already, is they do things called road diets. So you take a road, for a good example would be Edgewood Road in my neighborhood, or Hilltop Tyler. You reduce the road width. Johns Hopkins just came out with a study that says to have the safest roads, you only need 9 feet wide lanes. Our lanes go up to 13 feet, probably average 11 feet. Shrink them down to 9, slow down the traffic, it's safer, and what can you do with that space? What have they done in the Netherlands? Plant trees. So you have 9-foot travel lanes in the center, right next to them trees, which forces people to slow down. It's a mental thing. They think it's a slow country road, right? Put the trees on next to the trees, you put the cycle path and expanded sidewalk. We've got the space to do it. It's just a matter of getting through some of the, kind of historic thinking in various city departments and bureaucrats in the city. But anyway, that I think is one great way we can move forward. And that's not even factored into some of these Canby studies, because they look at the roads and think, oh, you can't do anything with it. Actually, you can. And that's one big thing I want to push forward. So anyway, that's my summary.
We'll get to hear more. I just want to make sure that we have Mr. Lippman, give him the opportunity to speak, because he's a dad and he needed to drop the kids off at 7 and he needs to leave at 7:45 to pick up those kids. So we're going to accommodate him so he can do that. Thank you. Thank you.
So first of all, I want to appreciate, I know all of us are here as some connection to Save Our Trees. How wonderful that Save Our Trees is out there saving and has saved over 3,000 trees. I think we should give her a round of applause. Brian Callahan is here. As I understand it, the initial idea came from Brian. So Brian, kudos to you for having the idea. My name is Jared Lippman. Most of you might know me as the owner of Canby True Value. It's been my day job for 20 years to the day as of this past Sunday. Started February 4th, 2004. And a few years later, my wife and I bought the business from her parents, and then we finished paying it off in 2020. So after paying that debt off, it felt really good, and now we're here. Along the way, before that, I should preface with my background. I have an environmental engineering degree from Washington University in St. Louis. I came back east to go to University of Maryland, get my law degree, and I practiced law. I had an environmental law concentration, and so I came into the hardware thinking this would be it's a lot of fun, but with wanting to have an environmental focus on the store and in the business and the community. And I think I can still say accurately, I'm the only business in the city of Annapolis that 100% generates our own electricity. We have 227 So I try to operate the business for obviously we've got to stay in business, it's a for-profit entity, but I try to have it be what's going to be good for the environment. So getting people to stop using like the tubs of Tide laundry detergent. We sell the laundry detergent strips, so it doesn't come in plastic jugs. You save a lot on transportation emissions by reducing. And it's things like that. But guess what? You all have the bigger impact on that than I do. As customers, when you shop and who you choose to do business with, if you choose to do business and you choose to buy the products that are good for the environment, guess what? Even if I don't care about the environment, I'm going to be encouraged financially to do those things. And so part of what I want to speak about today is just the huge impact that you have. It's great that we have leaders like Susan that is organizing us. And we have great leaders like Rob Savage. Rob and I have been working on forest conservation and trees for 10 years. Like you said, kind of overlap because when I was an alderman, he helped me get the first Forest Conservation Act, and that was really complicated, having to get through MDE and deal with a lot of opposition. And then the first no net loss, and then I could only take it to so much and get it passed, and then handed the baton over to Rob. And actually, I've announced I'm running for mayor in 2025, so I hope to take the baton. Thank you. Hopefully Rob will actually still be on the council, and we'll be on the council at the same time for once. That'll be would be really nice. But part of the message I'm trying to get across to you is just the impact. So it's wonderful that Rob's on the council and Brian Adams is doing it right. Okay, great. We just met today, so forgive me. But what you all do has a bigger impact on this, on what we can accomplish as elected officials, or what I was, and hopefully will be again. Let me give you an example. It's not environmental specific. In 2016, after Trump was elected, there was a lot of negativity about the Hispanic communities. And around the same time is when I had a Hispanic intern, Mark Rodriguez, help educate me on issues that are important to that community. And one of the things that came out of that effort was that say a Hispanic person is a victim of crime. They are hesitant, or were hesitant, to call the police because they were afraid to be asked about their immigration status in order to have the police come out. So they just didn't. So I introduced, it was 0117, and I'll try to make this quick because it's not specific environmental related, but you'll get to the point in a second. I'll get to the point in a second. 0117 basically said that when the city provides services, it would not ask a person's immigration status. And it was mostly directed to that situation I described with the police. It was largely unpopular on the council. And in the environment of post-Donald Trump, and I'm not gonna get into the politics of Donald Trump, I promise. But in that era of how things were changed, it was the people like you all coming out and demanding that change. And we had a few public hearings, at least this big of a crowd coming out multiple times saying, pass this legislation, we're in favor of this legislation. And so by the end, I had we do text each other during council meetings, if you didn't know that. And so by the end, I had council members saying, I didn't want to vote for this legislation, I don't particularly want to, but how can I not when I have all these people out demanding this change? And so it passed, I think unanimously, the mayor might have voted against that, my memory on that is not so clear. But the point is that legislatures will only pass and will only support and only can do as much as you demand. So Rob is predisposed to do good things for the environment. I'm predisposed to do good things for the environment. But we can't do those things unless you come out, you voice your opinion, you go to city council meetings. I know it's Monday nights, you're tired after Mondays, and that's when the council meetings are. You can submit testimony by email, in person, by letter, but you all really drive the priorities. Rob mentioned the budget. The budget is the biggest policy statement the city makes every year. It says what we're going to fund and what we're not going to fund. Can you imagine the change if you all came out to some of those budget hearings and said, I demand that Brian Adams gets his budget doubled. I demand that he gets another forester, that the tree sapling program that he does each year, they run out, and everyone's like, oh, they ran out. Well, it's because he didn't have enough of a budget. And so that's really what you all should hopefully take home, as you have more power than any elected official. Working together, coming in with a name, we're here with Save Our Trees is very effective. Coming in as a city resident, when you speak to the city, I don't know if everyone here is a city resident or not, but that's what's really effective. Like I said, so from a business perspective, as a business owner, and my wife who's always been my co-owner, she's now taking the lead on operating the store, and so I'm training her, and that's been, she grew up with her parents running the business, so it's kind of a fun ladder. But that's what's freeing me up to have the time to run for mayor. But that's, and so obviously I'm predisposed to want to do environmental things, but I need your support. Diane remembers and John remembers when we passed the Forest Conservation Act, it's largely because they and others like them came out to support and testify. So I realize it's not the most fun thing to do, but it's really important. It's important when Rob goes for re-election, hopefully Rob, and I run for election, to volunteer and help door knock and advocate for candidates, not just on the city level, but also you have important elections this May in the primary and then in November in the general. Be involved. And that's, I feel like everybody's got to do whatever their thing is. I'm not a parade, hold signs, loud person. I'm a let's get it done kind of person, but we need those people who are going to be loud, holding signs and be working the parades and that stuff to advocate for things. That's mostly what I want to cover. Hopefully I've covered my time. All right. Thank you so much for your patience and time.
Before I have you gentlemen come up and speak, and just say, from the very beginning, Save Our Trees knew that this was going to be a partnership between the residents and the city government. That one without the other is just not going to work. And I don't know how we knew that. except that the problem was so big, and you all know, I mean, we have this saying, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And we know that our job with Save Our Trees, that the thing that has been most impactful that we have done is that we have generated awareness and people now see the problem. And I am one of the people, you know what, you can have people who are preaching to the choir all the time, but we don't need to be preaching to the choir. What we need to do is we need to act, which is what Save Our Trees does. We need to educate, which is what we do, and we need to advocate. And when we get to our ask of you all, a big part of that is to help with the awareness. Talk to your neighbors, things that you can do. We're gonna brainstorm, we're gonna come up with ideas so that we can then turn to these people in the city that want to do the right thing, and we can help to empower them to do it. So I'm just really grateful for the service that you've given to our city, to the three of you, and you know, moving forward, I just feel like this, I keep telling the girls, we need to go shop our Oprah Winfrey outfits, because we're gonna make such a scene here in Annapolis that she's even gonna know about Save Our Trees in the city and what we're doing here. So that's what we're gonna do. Bartlett Trees has been taking care of the trees on my property for 35 years. And so when Save Our Trees got started, we reached out to them. You know, we have seriously, thank you all for coming. I'm gonna just kind of.
Sorry about that, guys. Let me pop back ahead.
And we want them to talk to you tonight about what we can do to keep our trees alive that are in our yards and help us to do our part with that. So there we go, Ryan and Joshua, thank you.
Thank you. Now we're gonna do this, Ryan.
Yeah, we didn't realize this would be a podium situation, so we are the private part of this talk. We've got the public here, and as far as what we do, we are your local tree doctors. We are arborists, and so as arborists, we advocate for doing what these folks are asking us to do, is maintaining the healthy tree canopy of existing trees. It is easier to maintain the trees that we have than to try to replant and redo it all. It takes a lot of time to replace the benefits of these mature trees. So we work for Bartlett Tree Experts. I'm the commercial arborist. I handle HOAs and land trusts, whatever there is, and dealing with business parks and doing just various consulting work with them. And Joshua?
And I'm a residential arborist, so I've been on many of your properties out there. As a company, we're a scientifically based tree company, and our main goal is to protect people's trees and protect them under their trees. So we go after, you know, being around your trees in safe situations, and then dealing with pests, diseases, cultural problems such as the vines that can affect trees. So many times people think they need to take down a tree that doesn't need to be taken down. So every day we're out there talking people out and taking their trees down, saying, you know, we can keep this tree, we just need to mitigate the risk to your family, or we need to mitigate the risk to your house, or treat it for a pest or disease. And that's the business model we want to be. We want to be in that education. Anytime we come out to look at a tree on one of your properties, it's complimentary. It's just information, and that's really the best way, in our opinion, to get a handle on what you have, what part of that city tree canopy is yours, what condition it's in, and how you can protect it. We look at a lot of it.
So can you tell us, is every tree company that goes out and takes trees down, are they all arborists?
The It depends on your definition. If they're cutting, they could be called arborists. But no, there's actually classifications. So there are professional associations, TCIA, the ISA, which is International Society of Arboriculture, and there are classes of accreditation within those. At the very least, if someone's on your property, they should be a certified
Certified arborist.
Licensed tree expert.
licensed
Oh,
tree
licensed tree
expert.
expert, sorry.
So licensed tree expert is the law for you to practice tree work here. You don't have to be a certified arborist to do that. That's through the ISA. You could also be a board certified master arborist, consulting arborist. Look for those accreditations when you're talking to somebody about your trees. The more of those letters they have behind their name, the more likely they are to care for your trees rather than cut it down. Just out of, the job.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies that you will call out to your house and you say, this tree is in decline, there's something wrong with it. And most of them that we've encountered will say, well, I'm not really sure what's wrong with it, but here's the price to cut it down. That's a very real situation that we find ourselves in. And so we get called after the fact and say, we've heard that you can do something about this. And so when you're looking for a company that is going to do something like this, you want to look at, again, the certifications that are outside of the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland is advanced in that because not many other states do that, which a lot of people don't know. But doing things like examining the soil, diagnostics, there are a lot of resources out there for that. Talking about risk mitigation, like the number one thing is my tree safe? I'm scared it's going to fall on my house. And so having a professional come out, an arborist, come out and have a look at your trees to kind of help put your mind at ease. There are mitigations that can happen in the tree, reduction pruning, canopy cleaning to get dead branches out. You're most likely going to find yourself in a bad situation from branch failure. Whole tree failure happens with certain types of trees, but it all comes down to species and wood physics of it, how the woodwork. So call somebody, don't just call the guy that's going to take it down. See if that's the right decision to make, because like we are all talking about, losing that canopy is the problem. And so if we can maintain that, we're one step ahead at our city goals here. One of the main things that, obviously we're here because of Save Our Trees, and a big deal are these vines. And talking about risk and mitigation, it's hard to even tell what's going on. I mean, you look at some of these pictures here and you try and ask a professional like us, what's wrong in this situation? You guys, Brian, and say, hey, what's going on with the tree? Well, it's gonna die. It's going to be drowned out. The leaves will overtake the canopy. It will not photosynthesize. It will die. If that's by your house, you should be concerned because it may be harboring some type of disease, a cavity that's unclear because it's hidden behind those thick vines. So again, handling the vines is a big deal, especially in communities. I know there's probably a lot of community members here. That should be the focus because nobody is owning that. And so as communities, we need to own this problem and manage it within. And when it becomes too much to handle within, then there are companies like ours that we can come out and help. So that is kind of a call to arms, I suppose, to go out there, find these things, and organize your community. Me working in the commercial realm, the biggest problem in communities is that the landscape budget, and it sounds like in the city as well, the landscape budget is not a tree budget. It shouldn't be. You should have a separate budget for your trees, and you should have a separate one for your mow and blow contracts, right? So going out, getting involved is really the big deal here in having these trees looked at by professionals if there is, in fact, an issue there. So, and we talked about the reputable companies and enforcement, helping Brian do the right thing. If you see something, say something. I mean, it's as simple as that. It may not always be an issue, but it does help. He's a one-man band, and he's got the entire city to deal with. So it's really important that we advocate for definitely getting you help. That is on all of us to really help him. And so doing the right things. He gets phone calls from me about stuff too often, probably. So should start charging for your phone number. But yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, we wanted to just cover the.
We're gonna do Q&A.
Yeah.
So I think we'll do Q&A with the whole panel here. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And Julian, I think that's where we'll stop that.
Okay.
And Marianne, I'll let you follow up and talk for a little bit. And I think just overall in terms of time, we'll see how discussion goes, but let's tentatively aim for around like 8:15, 8:20 to move on.
That's great. Okay. So I'm just very anxious to hear everyone's commentary on what you heard tonight. I mean, what we're doing at Save Our Trees is really just starting a discussion, trying to get the community involved and engaging in helping our tree canopy. And obviously we've talked about a whole array of different ideas tonight, you know, from, again, increasing the forestry budget to engaging the community, to legislation. And I just think it's, you know, as a commission, I think it's really important for, and again, I'm obviously have a little bit of a vested interest in here because I'm part of Save Our Trees, but to do everything that we can to move that goal forward, that 2040 goal of 50% tree canopy. I know you all are aware of the importance of trees to the environment. It's just immeasurable. And so again, I would really like to just open it up for discussion and just see what you all think. I think we've really started a great conversation. We were so pleased that so many people showed up, 50 people, and we're hoping that you know, for the March forum that we have a really good turnout as well. We're going to really reach out to all the different wards because we would like again to create kind of a groundswell of conversation among residents throughout the city. So I don't know, Linda, I know you were at the forum, so if you want to comment, that would be helpful.
Oh, it was wonderful. I was there and heard all the speeches you guys just witnessed. But I think the biggest value of Save Our Trees and what the group is trying to do is educate the communities. And when I got involved, I've known Susan for 10 years, but when she started talking to me about that, I said, oh, I have this tree in my backyard, this covered with ivy. It's gorgeous. And she said, Linda, it's killing the tree. And so we organized, I live in Hunt Meadow. And so we organized Save Our Trees group in Hunt Meadow. And this was a couple of years ago. And probably about 20 people showed up. Right. And and that's when I met you, Marianne.
Yes.
When
yep.
we both started on the commission. But we were shown how to, you know, cut the ivy, get it away from the tree and deal with it. And so in my community in Hunt Meadow, I keep my court pretty clean. And just a couple weeks ago, I was leaving to go someplace and I saw people out across the street on Hunt Meadow Drive with their bags and their clippers, and they were cutting the ivy. And I'm going like, yay, there's people. It was the education. They learned how to do it. They recognize it now. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And Hunt Meadow still we need to get to the front of Hunt Meadow and get the ivy off of a lot of trees there. So I want to try and start something. But I think the most valuable part of Save Our Trees is educating the communities. And so they are looking for, you know, whatever, homeowners associations, the boards, whatever, that they can talk to, that there are people in the community who can start, you know, send an email or put, you know, flyers on people's mailboxes or something to get people together to educate them and train them how to cut the ivy off the trees and deal with this thing, you know, in our own backyards. So
And I think, you know, with this tree canopy goal, we want to, you know, extend that education, you know, even beyond invasive control and maintenance to tree planting and just educating the overall public on the importance of trees in their own backyards. So
yes.
And I see Jackie Guild has joined us and has her hand raised, so I'll turn it over to her.
Hi, hi, Marianne. I just have a question for you. I did this on a 50-acre farm some years ago.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So, and I'm wondering what you guys are doing when you do the projects with regard to the roots, if anything, and what you're advising communities to do.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, so right now we're pulling, you know, we're pulling the ivy, you know, anywhere between 1 to 2 feet away from the base of the tree. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, we, like, for instance, in Truxton Park, we've had to go back and we're doing some additional maintenance of the ivy that we've already pulled off. But it's amazing. Like, once you get that sort of historic ivy off the trees, it's much easier to maintain. But I mean, over time, as we develop, I mean, we want to get to a point where we can, you know, eradicate the ivy from the forest floor in the right way. I mean, it's going to end up being a grant contractual situation. It's not going to be volunteers. We're not there yet. I mean, we're still kind of developing a template for that. But you know, we're making progress. And like Linda said, I mean, I would say, in addition to obviously saving 3,000 trees to date, I think our biggest impact has really been on the education side of it, just making people aware. And again, the fact that, you know, so many people showed up for that community forum was such a positive. So, and by the way, I want to, Jackie, I know you were there, which was great. Thank you for coming. Yeah. And also, I know you were actually just a little shout out to Jackie. You were very helpful when Save Our Trees started out to get us kind of set up properly. So thank you.
Yeah, what's great about you guys is, you know, you take advice and you follow every single bit of it. And you guys do, and you just take off, and you take, you know, and you've done every single thing that, you know, we, you know, provided, you know, all the tools we gave you and all the advice we gave you and all the connections we provided for you, you made. So that's kudos to you for doing that.
It's been a good run. It's been a good run. Yeah. But there's so much more to do.
Yeah. But I was going to suggest to you, you know, somebody may ask that question, you know, what should we do to keep this from coming back? And, you know, just to have some prepared answer other than Roundup, which is what, you know, most people do use, because you can, you know, that's how you take care of it, so it doesn't come back. But, you know, we could have another answer than that. And for right now, I understand you're just getting the ivy off the trees, which is half the battle. And
exactly,
you don't have to do anything more than that, because as it dies, the wind just takes care of it. It knocks it off the rest of the way. But some people may want to know, you know, how do I keep it from coming back? So just
yeah. And right now, I mean, for us, it's really, unfortunately, it's maintenance and work. You know, we go back to, and like in Truxton, we've gone back to groves of trees that we've already removed ivy from, and we just actually we have work days, just the members of Save Our Trees, and we maintain trees that we've already encountered and taken care of previously. But again, it's, you know, that's not the long-term solution, as you know, as you just said. So we're working towards a better solution for the future.
And Racine has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to take 30 seconds to make sure that we recognize Marianne and Terry McKenna and Save Our Trees are also working with the city to do outreach and education in lower income areas and underrepresented areas.
Yes.
So their reach is wide.
Yep. We're making good progress in that direction.
So, and as you guys know, the comprehensive plan is going through its hearings now with City Council. There's a work session tomorrow from 3 to 5, and it's going to be going through each individual committee. The next Environmental Matters Committee is on, what day of the week is that? Thursday, March the 14th from 3 to 5. I believe they're taking up the comp plan. The environmental sections of the comp plan, there are recommendations on tree conservation and tree canopy as part of the comp plan. So if this commission wants to, in the past, this commission has made comments in writing and they came to testify previously in the last 2 years. But if there's any other written comments you want to submit or attend any of the sessions, pay attention to the agendas that are coming up, some of them are already published.
Yeah, Jackie, I had mentioned, I think before you came on that, there's in that environmental section under the tree canopy, I think, and again, I mentioned this, pages 298 to 304. It's a very comprehensive overview of the tree canopy and how we're going to get to the 2040 goal. So if you all have time to read through that, and if you want to comment to me, I'm happy to run with it and summarize our comments as a group if we want to do that.
Okay.
Something else, and Jackie, I don't know if you can help with this. I had again mentioned before you went on that with the genesis of that forum was we got together with Brian Adams because we wanted to help advocate for an increased forestry budget, and I actually, since the forum, I've reached out to Brian and said, just let us know how we can help. I'm waiting for him to get back to me specifically, because again, if we're gonna advocate.
Well, you can always advocate for that during, there's always a time during city council meetings for public testimony. And during those times of public testimony, you can testify. You only have 3 minutes, but you can testify about anything that's not on the agenda that's already scheduled for public hearing. So, if specifically, where budget is going to be starting to be discussed, we're meeting as staff every single day. There are meetings on budget. So we're doing that internally right now. And then in January, I think all our major budget hearings really, no, we're already in January, we're in February, sorry. We know our budget hearings are going to start with city council soon. So I think when it's not budget's not on city council agenda yet. So when
that gives us a little time for Brian to get, and again, we're doing this as citizens. We want to try to be as specific as we can.
Right.
Not so just he needs more money. Like we want to be specific.
So that's appropriate. That'll be appropriate time during the public testimony, public comments period portion of the city council meetings, which is generally up front. It's right near the front of the meeting, beginning of the meeting anyway. So you don't have to stay for a long time. It's right after general citations and minutes and things like that. That's the time to say, as you consider your budget deliberations for the city arborist's budget, that's an appropriate time. And just realize you only have 3 minutes. So you may want to bring several people with you, and everyone has their piece they want to say.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because you will be cut off by the time you state your name and where you live and, say what you need to say. It goes by rather quickly. So you might want to do, whatever you need to say that way. I do know that Department of Planning and Zoning is proposing a much larger budget for Mr. Adams this year. I think they also are trying to get a junior forester to help him, but that's what they're proposing. So that does not mean that he will get that.
Right, okay. Okay.
That's one strategy.
Okay.
So we just had, so you can look at, our city council meetings are published on the website, when they occur. We just had one last night, so they're every 2 weeks. That was a special meeting last week, but we end up usually having 2 a month. So the next one will be in 2 weeks from last Monday.
Okay. Okay, very good. And then, just another comment. I'll keep the commission updated on these forums or any kind of activities that I think you all would be interested in. So, and if you're interested in helping out in any way, just let me know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know I personally can't make it on March 12th. Otherwise, I would love to be there and wish you all good luck at that. It does sound like it'll be another good session. I haven't been able to find information for that online on either the WSA or the Save Our Trees Facebook stuff. So wanted to mention that.
I'll double check on that. Yeah, thank you for that. I'll double check on that. I'm not sure why it's not on. It should have already come out as an invitation, so I'll double check. Yeah.
And it's possible I missed it, but Paul, I do see your hand, but first I do want to just say a couple things.
Sure.
Myself, we have just maybe a few more minutes before I'd like to move on, but we'll give Paul a chance. I think
yeah, just two quick ones.
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead. I think you're just on the phone.
The 2 quick questions. The first one, as we trim the ivy from the lower portions, within our reach, is it 3 to 5 years between this? I mean, I know it varies a little bit how much sunshine they get, whatever, but how many year interval between we work on a patch and then you come back, a decade later, it's regrowing. So what's your kind of cycle?
So, I mean, it really depends on it really depends on so many variables. The tree, where the tree is, how well the ivy's been removed. I did actually my first tree in Truxton Park I did 2 years ago, and I went back to see it last weekend, and it was free of ivy. So it's exposed to sunlight. So, but yeah, so it really varies on.
The other question I had was just the kids of whatever appropriate age that is, 3rd to 6th grade. Just think of the Girl Scout Cookie Army. If we get them deployed out doing things that are not beyond their scope, I think we all know school teachers. We all likely know teachers who teach younger than 7th grade. Ask them, and I wonder if there's some field trips, some kind of extra credit. You get kids that are strong enough to do clippers, they don't have to reach high, and they could trim a lot of ivy on a couple of Saturdays.
So we've already
violation here, but it's okay.
Well, we're already involved with Annapolis High School, also Broadneck, but very much so with Annapolis High School. We're involved with their IB program. They haven't come out to Truxton, but they've been out to Quiet Waters, removing invasives. And the issue for us with younger children is we've got sharp tools. So we're pretty careful about not having them involved in actually clipping ivy, but maybe just potentially coming behind with their parents and maybe bagging it. Yep. But just so that, very good point. We are definitely involved or getting involved with the schools, and we're making inroads into, like I said, Annapolis High School and Broadneck. So we hope to.
I thank you for that. That's good info. I only challenge. I will bet the 5th and 9th graders will outperform some of the high school.
I don't disagree with you.
Talent of a motivated kid who's old enough to handle some clippers, but just in finishing, maybe we ask your friends or teachers, kids under 9th grade, and see what they feel they're capable of doing, because there's a lot of motivated kids, that's right in there. They all live, not all, most of them live in a neighborhood, so Okay, that's all. Back to you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Paul. And the questions I had after listening to the speakers, I'm not sure if anyone here is able to answer this, because it might be a question for Brian or for Alderman Savage, but the alderman mentioned 1,377 trees per year to plant to reach that 2040 goal of 50%. I'm assuming, well, I guess I don't know. Does anyone know if that compensates for mortality or expected loss that is happening, or is that strictly from where we are now to get?
It doesn't. I asked that question. It does not include for mortality.
But the fatality rate's not that high, right? It's not 15%, it's 3%.
No, I don't know what percent it is, but it does not include for mortality, nor for trees taken down for that are allowed to be taken down.
Okay.
And we also know that, when we do allow trees to be removed and there's compensation, or if they're taken down without a permit and then we find them and require them to be replaced, we're requiring trees. Sometimes we require 3 trees to be replaced for 1 tree, depending on the size of the tree. But even when those 3 trees are put in, they're not providing the canopy that one large tree, mature tree did.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So it really is even more than that many trees per year if we're going to hit that goal then. Yeah. Even if we are cutting down as much ivy as we can, some trees will still always get removed or die. Yeah. And I think that was the main question I had. I do want to move us on, but I also just want to check okay, Jenny, I'll get to you. But first, was there any questions from the Q&A at the February 7th forum that really stuck out to anyone and they want to highlight from those who were there? All right. Well, if not, Jenny.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick questions. I heard Brian say that he did an analysis, and then I heard Alderman Savage talk about a canopy master plan, but I don't know. Does that exist, or is that going to happen?
It does not exist. That's something we've been pushing for years, and that's something that Brian Adams is seeking funding for, and I think they're pushing forward with it now. I don't know if he has funding for it now, or if they're seeking funding for it now, but I know I was just hearing them talk about it in planning and zoning, that they're moving forward with it. I don't know if that means moving forward to seek the funding, or they're moving forward with the plan, but I will double check on that. I just, right before you said that, Jenny, I had made a note to follow up with Brian about it. It's also a message right now.
Because it would be useful. It would be useful because I do think, backyards are important, and front yard residential lots are important, and that's a lot of the land area of Annapolis. But I don't think that the conversation should steer too far away from encouraging, as much as we can, the city streetscapes and commercial developments too, and that's new parking lots and et cetera, to do as much as they can, because oftentimes there's a lot of wins there that can be had. And I think the streetscapes personally could be, improved. That's just, it's kind of my opinion here. But I do know that I know there are requirements, but just encouraging and keeping for commercial. But I think keeping that on the table as a conversation, and not letting the conversation steer too much towards residents to bear the brunt of this, but making sure that it's both.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity in our streetscapes to put more trees in. I mean, we're hearing more and more that our roads don't need to be as wide as they are. You can have more narrow roads, which when you narrow the roads, it slows your traffic anyway. And then, it reduces fatalities and vehicular accidents, pedestrian accidents with cars, otherwise better for bicycling. So this goes to the whole alternate modes of mobility that the mayor's pushing anyway, and that we have included in the comp plan. So you could put a center line, like down Forest Drive, for example. You could have a center row of trees
right.
going down Forest Drive.
Yeah.
You see a lot of communities where you have that center row of trees, and then you have trees on the sides too. So then you create that canopy. Kind of you're driving through like as it grows, kind of a canopy on each side. So there are opportunities. I think that's a great point, Jenny. I was just thinking about that the other day too. Is like we have all these roads where we could be planting more trees, and then you have better places for people to walk on the sidewalk that is gated.
Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Yeah.
But I can make the if we share the information for March 12th, I think I can.
Yeah, and I'll get that to the commission as soon as I have the flyer and more and the information on it. I'll send it out to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I want to thank Marianne for helping this come together, sharing the link, and to Julian for making the recording sound better. So
that was amazing.
That worked a lot better than I would have if I had been the one doing the screen sharing. So really appreciate his efforts there, and for adjusting with the applause and everything else that he did for us tonight. And Marianne and Linda and Jackie, others who were there, thank you for sharing your perspectives for us. This agenda came together kind of last minute, and I'm just thankful to everyone for being flexible.
Great. Thank
so
you.
With the rest of our time tonight, there's a couple things I want to make sure we cover any significant updates or news from Racine or Jackie, and from our city staff friends. And then Bill did want to talk about roadside litter a little bit and maybe brainstorming some ideas. So Bill, is that do you want to go first, or should we go to Jackie?
Let's let Bill go first.
Okay.
Okay, and I apologize, I'm driving, but yeah, I've seen a lot of posts on social media, on Nextdoor and others, about the amount of litter on our roadways. And I don't know if there are any, there used to be like company sponsorships of roads, and even, the less dangerous criminals that would have work parties that would go out and do litter pickups. And I literally haven't seen anything like that in years. And the litter is really, really terrible. So I'm not coming to the table with, concrete ideas, but I'm asking if anybody else does. I mean, specifically, like, there was a comment about Admiral Drive and the connector from Admiral Drive over to basically near the detention center, and how it's really, really terrible. And I'm tempted to go out there myself, but it's an extremely dangerous road to walk on, much less to pick up trash on. So I just don't know what we can do about that particular problem, but it's pretty bad.
Let's see, and Paul, you have your hand up.
Well, that's one assignment I will not volunteer my Girl Scout Army for. I think they'll kick tail on Ivy, but they're not going to do that. Bill, what we could look at, guys, I saw a large amount of it in Toronto a year ago, and along the roads, they put some embankment in, and, corporate sponsorship, that's a hard sell these days, right? And we should find solutions more than just relying on corporation. But nonetheless, they had areas that were beautified, whether it's appropriate grass, and there's a little bit of signage of the company. This one was grass, just cut in like a logo. So you're kind of selling some advertising space, but if it's a blighted area and they put 40 grand in to make it nicer or more sustainable, You know, I'm okay with that. I'm sure, the city council's got to look at that, but trading them, get them to beautify something and let them tastefully have their name hanging there is, I'm not saying it's the best way, but that's one option.
All right.
Right. Thank you.
And Bill, so it's mostly like Admiral Drive or otherwise, or is this mostly you're seeing or hearing things like residential roads or other major roads?
I mean, I see it everywhere. It gets really bad around any kind of off ramps or sharp turns. You'll see it collect there. Obviously, in storm drains that don't get cleaned properly, you'll see it gather there as well. But you see it in the wintertime a lot worse than in the summertime. Obviously, the vegetation grows up and covers a lot of the litter, but in the wintertime, it gets exposed for everybody to see.
Inch or two.
Yeah, sorry, I think Paul, I'm not sure if you were intentionally talking.
Arrives.
Paul, I think you need to mute. And Jackie, I think you were ready to chime in.
Oh, yeah, I can speak to the engineer in Public Works who's responsible for our trash removal and that sort of thing to see. I know for city roads, it would be trash removal occurs through the Department of Public Works, their crews. I'm not sure what their schedule is, so I could find out. And then we have some roads that are state roads. So that's the Maryland Highway Administration, State Highway Administration. That would be they have different crews for those. So I can find out from her, what the schedule is and when they do that. And then if we do have, I'm trying to think of, I think in the county, I see some sponsorships on some roads, but I don't see any of that in the city. So I can find out whether we've ever tried that, if there's a reason why we don't have that, find some more information out from Public Works about that.
Yeah, and I guess Project Clean Stream or other things that come to mind for me. I mean, that's not road focused, that's stream focused, but it all ends up there eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be nice to maybe have some efforts to clean up some of it upstream as well. Well, if Jackie can share what she learns via email or at our next meeting, then we can maybe brainstorm further, Bill.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right, and so with our remaining time, I'll note we did send out the two documents from Racine on the development projects and the resiliency. Forget the document name. The resiliency projects. I think that document's called. So I'll let Jackie and Racine talk about anything in particular they want to highlight. We don't need to go through everything. But if there's anything they really want to share for our attention, let's have them do that, and then we can open up to questions.
So what I would encourage this commission to do in the past, those documents go out ahead of time and everyone reviews them, is if we have a particular concern about a development project that we brought in Department of Planning and Zoning to speak to the group about it. So when we had a big one, especially coming in where it was a sensitive area, we had presentations before from Department of Planning and Zoning about them. So I encourage everyone to look at those. Their Planning and Zoning will be preparing these consistently again as they used to in the past, so we can send them out ahead of time and everyone can look at them. From storm drain issues, sediment erosion control, for sensitive area, for tree conservation, for whatever concerns anyone has. That way we can be prepared. This commission can be prepared if they want to submit comments to the Planning Commission or whatever commission they would like to about who's considering them. So we make sure that Racine gets them to you ahead of time and everyone has plenty of time to consider them and get our comments in or bring some of Planning and Zoning before you so you can answer questions. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I might not be able to answer them about any particular developments at this time. I did note, and I sent a note to the Director of Planning and Zoning, that there was a law passed last year by the General Assembly that went into effect for any new builds that were applying for permits as of October of 2023. Townhomes, semi-detached homes, so duplexes, and single-family homes had to have at least anything with a driveway, had to have one EV-ready spot. I don't think we have had any new developments come in for permitting. You know, many what's happening, what you see happening now in the city are things that have already had their permits. You know, they had their permits in long ago. Things take a long time sometimes to chug through the system. So I sent a message to the Director of Planning and Zoning to verify for me that we don't have any new developments that that law would have applied to make sure that we are in compliance with it. However, I did note in the General Assembly, they did introduce a new bill that would go beyond that to go apply to also condos and apartments. So it's a little bit more extensive than the last one that they passed. So that one's under consideration now in the General Assembly. Let's see what else we've got going on.
Let me
I know that
jump in. Kathy, you have your hand raised. Is it about one of the things Jackie just raised?
Kathy.
Can you hear me? I was just checking if you can hear me.
Yeah.
You can't hear me. You can? Okay. I was going to ask about the development on Aris T. Allen, where they cut down all the trees a while ago, and I just didn't know what the status of that was. But also interested in EV chargers in like existing developments, like in Hunt Meadow, where I'm in the townhouse and I don't have a driveway. If there are, is there any information about how other cities or jurisdictions are encouraging those existing developments to put in EV chargers and the best way that they're doing that?
I'll take the first one first. Aris T. Allen. God, I'm trying to remember what they changed the name to. It's something very grand.
Athens.
Rocky George.
Athens. That's what it is. Athens. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember what they used to call it, but Rocky Gorge. Is that Rocky
It
Gorge?
was
They changed
Rocky
it to
Gorge.
Athens.
Sorry to
And now
interrupt.
it's
It was
Athens.
Rocky Gorge. It's now Athens.
Yeah. And Racine, if you, I'm not looking at that sheet to tell you where that is in the process.
Honestly, I don't have it pulled up either. But I will take a look and send an email out. I'll make a note to send an email out to update you.
Well, I have it pulled up. Sorry to interrupt.
You're fine.
It was cleared, and then there was, issues about roads and, there's about which areas were cleared appropriately or not. And so there's some back and forth in that. So I think that project is going to start moving soon. But it seems sometimes it seems like they clear it and then nothing happens for a while. And then that was one of the cases here where there was some issues concerning that site that had to be addressed again through planning and zoning. And what were you gonna say, Jenny?
My memory was that that outlet onto I think it's Aris T that's right there. There was some question about access to roads and state roads and city roads and a light and what's safe and what's not safe. So I don't know where that stands now.
Yeah, that was the whole issue. I remember Alderwoman Finlayson raised a lot of issues about safety there, road safety. So you'll get an update on Athens.
Yeah, I'll check with planning and zoning, and I'll send out an email and include everyone, including Jackie, of course, on the update on this project.
So EV chargers at existing homes. And so because the law that was passed last year only applies to new development. So what other jurisdictions are doing? Very timely question. I'm having my Resilience and Sustainability Fellow look into that right now. He's currently doing that research for me. So I have the Resilience and Sustainability Fellow for 6 months. We got creative with some funding and that was left over. And so I have this young man for a while. And he's kind of treating him sort of like a legislative aide. He helped me a lot with the gas powered leaf blower ban, developed an extensive staff memo to inform the decisions by council on that. So I had, right now he's doing work on the plastic bag ban that Alderman Savage is getting ready to introduce. But I'm also having him look into electric vehicle charging requirements, whether for new development or existing development and redevelopment. So as part of that work, he's looking at other jurisdictions. So I had to pull him off of that research to do some work on the plastic bag ban, but I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, I will have the answer to your question, Kathy, what they're doing in other jurisdictions. Now, I think mostly what's happening are not retrofits. What we see mostly is new builds. That's easy, but not retrofitting. No requirements for if you've already have a house. No one's requiring you to retrofit, add a 240 volt, EV ready station to your garage. But pretty much all jurisdictions in Maryland are going to, if you're building new, you have to have either a charging station or be EV ready. So all the wiring, everything there to clip one on of your choice. And with the subdivisions, it's a choice that the developer presents to the buyer, whether they want to pay up to have the charger on the wall or just be EV ready to select one of your own. That's what we're seeing. I'm also having him research, he's doing plastic bags for me right now. And then I have him researching the EV ready. And then I'm also having him researching solar, what other jurisdictions are doing, requiring for new builds and redevelopment as far as solar. Not so much, residential's not so much means large buildings. As far as EV too, I'm having him look at parking lots. So some jurisdictions have a requirement. If you have so many spaces, you have to have so many EV charging stations. So parking lots for multifamily dwellings, condos, apartments, for commercial parking lots, whether it's a mall or other retail. So I'm having to look at that as part of the EV charging and EV ready. I'm ahead of you guys tonight.
Was that all your was that all your questions, Kathy? I just want to double check since the hand was still raised. No worries. And Paul's hand popped up. But Paul,
I apologize.
Well, Racine, were you just making a point in response to what was just said, or is this a new?
Something new.
Okay, so Paul, did you want to make a point or ask your question? Yep, Paul. We don't hear you if you're talking, but I see your hand up again. All right, he might be having technical difficulties. Oh, there you go.
He is.
Now we hear you.
Sorry about that, folks. Just quickly, you can all Google it. The city of Los Angeles came up with a really clever thing about EV charging. They got a little bit of an apparatus that bolts to the bottom of all the street lamps that are already there. So it's not this cost of putting in new charging and regulations, which is all great, but it's so much less expensive. Think of a street lamp with sufficient juice in it, electricity. They got a little thing that bolts on the bottom, and now that you have LED lights up top, they don't need as much power. So that seems like, and the street lamps aren't drawing any lights during the day. That seems like a really inexpensive, a much less expensive way that you can quickly get going on things. So Jack, I emailed that article, and everybody can just Google LA street light EV chargers. That's all.
All right, thanks for that, Paul. Racine?
Thank you, Paul. I was going to say, Paul, thank you for that. I think that technology is getting better and better. I looked into that a couple of years ago with BG&E, and I don't know if they just didn't want to do it, or the technology was difficult for them, or our streetlights are just not as easy as some of the newer streetlights. But and it's funny you said that, Paul. I was just contacted today by another company that's what they do. They make these connections. I just think there is more and more new technology coming out that makes it easier and easier. So I actually have them on my list to call back tomorrow. So
Yeah.
Thanks for that article, Paul. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, just a little bit tongue in cheek. You're like, well, for sure the technology's getting better, and then you're like, well, BG&E, maybe they don't want to do it. I deal a lot with Blue Cross. It's like, yeah, it's hard to get glaciers to turn, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is my point to them was, it's hard for us to put in street chargers, because this is another thing I looked into, street chargers. We don't have room on some streets, especially in Eastport and on some of the narrow streets downtown, for street charging, but we do have light posts, everywhere. So they don't take up any more room. I mean, we do have, I'm not sure about the infrastructure needs with the light pole charging. That's the only thing I have to look into, because if there's extra infrastructure that needs to go somewhere.
In LA, they've done retrofits, but sure, I'm sure there's some light posts that are very old and decrepit. But here's one of the aces up your sleeve, Jackie, is you're right. A modern one would do it, like the technology is getting better. But particularly when we have new developments coming in and it's new home, we can say, dudes, you're buying the new light post. You're not buying the 20-year-old one, even if it costs less. And so, and then, so we'll have to look further. I think downtown, the grid is really stable and powerful. There's hardly any brownouts. So, Clay Street might be able to have a couple of them, and they have off-street parking. So you're not creating any additional crowd.
Right. All right. Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Go ahead, Racine.
2 points. The first is kudos on you getting your annual report in to Hillary. And then the second is priorities for AEC. I think it's something you need to take a look at and maybe focus on a little bit and get that done. I think it'll help you moving forward in what you focus on, et cetera, et cetera. My second, was that first or second? But the other is, I just want to let you know that Jackie and I have been looking at the Maryland Energy Administration, and there's some funds for converting to energy efficiency and EV structures, and we're looking for funding. This is on our plate, and we are moving forward and seeing how we can do that.
Very cool. And yeah, we're hoping, just looking ahead to March real quick, we might be able to get Annapolis Green here. So I think that might help generate just some thoughts and things that we can roll into priorities as well. Since wasn't able to make that happen for this meeting, but I don't think we're necessarily going to rewrite all of our priorities. I think a lot of what we've had the past couple of years in particular still pretty relevant, with some minor updates. And yeah, that's very interesting. The fellow you mentioned, Jackie, I'm curious when's that 6 months up?
Yeah, it looks like you're frozen.
Yeah, it looks like Jackie's frozen. Well, we can follow up. I only ask because if that fellow
he started in the month of February. Okay, I'm not sure exactly the date, and we can go 6 months out from then.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and if depending on the individual, if they want a chance to present at a public forum like this one as part of their experience for just 6 months, I think I would more than welcome that opportunity to have them present to us at some point in the future. And looks like, Jackie, you're back. We lost you for a minute. I was only asking about Racine helped fill us in that the fellow started this past month. So 6 months is the term you mentioned.
Yeah, because we juggle around some money to make this happen. And I asked in the budget for, you know, what we're asking for the fiscal year 25 budget, I'm asking for a full year for this position. And then I would be able to advertise and interview for the position.
Very cool. Well, if the current individual wants experience presenting at a forum like ours, I think we'd be more than happy to entertain that and welcome him as a chance to talk about the various experiences and research they do during their time. So I always love to hear that, especially if they're a young professional. You know, a lot more enthusiasm.
The other thing that I want to bring up is the Department of Transportation did a pilot program with Public Works Department on composting, and their office is for 6 months. So at the end of March, it will end 6 months, and everyone seems to be utilizing it for the food scraps in their office. And Racine's going to find out from Public Works if they plan to continue this, if that's in their budget for fiscal year 25. And also the idea was it was a pilot to see if it was well received, and then whether this would be extended throughout the rest of the city offices and buildings and facilities. So Racine is going to find that out this week, and if that's in the budget, I think it should be. You know, we should be composting throughout all the city buildings.
They started in the Department of Transportation, and their participation has been high, and it's been going smoothly, and it's working for them. So we're going to take that and see what happens next.
It looks like
That's definitely a program that if there's any way we can support and advocate for it, it's been proven to work in so many different places. So there's so much precedent out there to understand how to make it work. And I don't know all the details about what might be holding it back, but would love to be able to support that further.
Yeah. So Racine and I talked about today, and tasked her with finding out from Public Works, as I said, whether this is going to be continued for them and extended to all of the city buildings and all departments, and if that's in their budget request for fiscal year 25. So, you know, when she finds out, we will relay back to you so that you can, you know, this commission could, that's another thing that you could testify about, that should be something that should be included in the budget. It's something the city should be doing, and you guys could do written comments, and you can also show up. So
Right, okay.
we'll get that information to you about composting as well. Let me see if there was anything else I thought you guys might be interested in commenting or taking action on. Supporting, I know I was going to tell you about the master plan, supporting that, and any budget for Brian and the composting. And let's see. Oh, I know I wanted to update you on, and all of you, since there's new people here, I probably may not be aware that the city actually is we have climate change litigation, and the city sued the major oil and gas manufacturers, the developers, refineries, etc. And it's City of Annapolis versus BP et al. We filed this lawsuit a couple of years ago, along with about 40 other cities and counties throughout the United States. We're represented by a firm by the name of Cher Edling, who are representing almost all of the plaintiffs, city and county plaintiffs. This has been slogging through the case has been slogging through the motions kind of portion of the litigation. You know, the companies are trying just to slow it, get it down, and get it thrown out on, you know, different kinds of technicalities, that is. So, and failing, and then appealing again and again and again to all the different courts of appeals, and failing over and over and over. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the one that we are in, had a very good ruling on Monday, and basically said that the maxim of if you at first fail, try again, applies very well to this group of defendants, that is the oil companies. But They failed now about 10 times, and the 11th time is not going to be a charm. That's how they led their opinion. So they failed yet again in the Fourth Circuit. And what they were trying to do was remove all of the plaintiffs' cases to federal court, out of state court into federal court, because the laws are much more favorable to the plaintiffs in state court. Maryland has a great consumer protection law and tort laws that are much better. And the defendants have failed again and again to remove us to federal court. So we're still in state court. Hopefully very soon, all of these motions we've exhausted almost every circuit there is to appeal to, and we can get down into the nitty gritty of the actual merits of the case, which are that these companies knew that their products were causing climate change and greenhouse gases were causing climate change, and yet they willfully and went on a campaign of deceit and deception and misled the American public into thinking that this was not happening despite the science, and that we should not believe the science that was out there, and therefore no one took the actions they could have long ago to combat climate change and make other decisions. And therefore now we're holding the bag and having to deal with all of the climate change impacts. So, the city of Annapolis is one of the plaintiffs that have sued the oil and gas companies. So I was speaking to the Office of Law earlier this week, and we've already heard rumblings that they want to settle. The oil and gas companies want to settle with the group of plaintiffs. And now that they have failed yet another time in trying to remove us to federal court, that is much more likely to happen. So stay tuned.
And I did see in the news that the neighboring property on Cars Beach was acquired by the city.
Yes, yes, it was. So that additional property with the house on it, and it has a little pier. The house is not in great shape. That's going to take a lot of rehab. That property is now part of the whole Cars Beach project. We had a ribbon cutting with the county executive and some of our state electeds and the mayor last week. No, it was 2 weeks ago. And at the property. And so that is part of the whole Cars Beach master plan that Reckitt Parks is leading right now. They have hired someone who did designs in Central Park and other very famous places to work on a master plan for Cars Beach. And that is planned, you can still, I don't know if any of you have been there, but there is a pathway with some signage there that describes what historically occurred at Cars Beach and some of the plans for Cars Beach, so you can't access the property. But that will be the shoreline stabilization project is already in design. We have funding through DNR for that. The county and the city did that jointly with the Resilience Authority's help. That project will likely be started later this year. The design is nearing completion. And because if you've been there, you can see one of the outfall pipes, very visible, which used to be buried in sand, and you did not see it from the shore. Now you can. This is treated water. But it's not visually very appealing, and it goes out quite a distance, almost a half mile out into the water. But so a lot of sand will be brought in. The beach will be rebuilt. There'll be plants put in, rock, other things done to stabilize the shore and to deal with the wave attenuation there. And then we'll probably, I don't know if we're going to deal with the repairing the pier right away, but then there's going to be a master plan for the rest of the property later, which will get into the types of buildings like we've talked about putting a pavilion there that could be for bands or other things, picnic tables, benches, and in addition to getting rid of the invasives and improving the natural features of the property. Then there's the Chesapeake. It's envisioned that they would occupy the building on the property that we just acquired next door. But that building, there's quite a bit of renovation and would have to do that before anyone can occupy it. And that property also needs to be restored. There's a pier there that we could use for visiting boats to come in and tie up to. That needs a little bit of repair as well. You probably would need some stonework to buffer that pier because of the wave action. You're right, open to the bay there. The mayor also envisions that that would be a ferry stop, an electric ferry stop there to bring people in from Annapolis and other spots. So there's a lot of ideas around it, and that will all be part of the master plan that Rec and Parks is leading.
Great.
And
Well,
we could always have, when that progresses a little further, we can always have Rosalind Johnson or her master planner come and speak to us.
Yeah, definitely love to hear more on that and as that develops. But I think we are a couple minutes past 9, so I would do want to wrap us up. Appreciate everyone joining us this evening. I think this agenda came together pretty nicely and this worked out great. Hoping March will go just as well. And just a reminder, March 27th looks like the Wednesday for our next meeting. So with that, I'll go ahead and motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, ayes have it. We'll adjourn this session of the Environmental Commission. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good month.